The fourth basic principle is that of compulsory charity, known as zakat. And this, as I mentioned, was 2.5% of one's surplus wealth. And the difference between this and the tithe is that the tithe, the 10%, which is required of the Jewish Christian tradition, is that the 10% doesn't take into account the differences in family. I may earn £1,000 a month, and so may you, but I may have 10 children and you have one. So 10% of my wealth in relationship to 10% of yours can be quite unfair. So the system, the Islamic system of 2.5% is 2.5% of surplus wealth. Surplus wealth meaning one's savings which one has not used over a period of a year. If one has savings over the value of approximately $1,000, $2,000, or pounds, £1,000, which you haven't used over a period of a year, then 2.5% of it should be given to the poor. And again, it's not given to a priesthood, because there's no priesthood in Islam, to support priests or such a thing. It is given directly to the poor. The individual may give it to a central committee who would handle distribution of it, or they may give it themselves directly to the needy. And of course, the goal behind this is the development of generosity, a quality which is admired by all societies, generosity which comes from the individual without any ulterior motive, because we have many different types of generosity around in the world today. I mean, some of it is it has goals behind, there are strings attached, or there are ulterior motives behind the giving. What this trains individuals in is that giving without any strings attached. And it is compulsory, but at the same time encourages the individual to also do this as a regular habit. Charity. Actually, there are a number of other principles in Islam which demands of the individual, consideration of charity under other circumstances. But this is the basic compulsory requirement for each and every Muslim who has the means to share some of his wealth with, or her wealth with, others. The fifth pillar is that of Hajj, the pilgrimage to Mecca. And this pilgrimage represents a commemoration of Abraham's establishment of the first house of worship to God on the earth, according to the Islamic system of belief, that Abraham, when he took his second wife, Hagar, he took her to Mecca, to Arabia, and left her there with her son Ishmael, based on God's command. And from there he returned and built, along with his son Ishmael, a house of worship, which came to be known in Arabic as the Kaaba. And this, if any of you have seen any pictures of Mecca, you will see this black cube, which people are praying around. That cube is the house of worship originally built by Abraham. Of course, not originally meaning that all the stones are the original stones. It's known that it is broken down and been rebuilt over the generations, and that only one part of it remains from the original structure, and that is the part referred to as the black stone, which marks the corner from which those who circumambulate begin that circumambulation. So the pilgrimage to Mecca, as I said, marks that commemoration of that particular event, links the final message of Islam to the earlier presentation of that message by Prophet Abraham. In this period of the pilgrimage, there is also another festival, the second major festival in the Muslim world known as Eid al-Adha, or the festival of sacrifice, at which time, and this is in the 10th or the 12th month of the lunar calendar, known as Dhul Hijjah, on the 10th of that month, Muslims will, those who have the means, will take an animal, a sheep or a goat or a cow or a camel, and sacrifice this animal, that is cutting the neck. And the meat is distributed amongst the poor and the needy, and they eat a portion of it. And this sacrifice is in commemoration of Abraham's sacrifice, his willingness to sacrifice his son, after which he was instructed to sacrifice an animal in the place of his son. That represents the Hajj. What happens during Hajj is that approximately 2 million people today gather for these acts of worship, in which some days involve fasting, some days there are prayers all the way through, and the principles of charity are also in practice there. It represents a time when Muslims are coming from all parts of the world, and it reinforces in the minds of the adherents of Islam the universality of Islam, that humankind is one creation, there is one God, and only that one God should be worshipped. The question, as I mentioned, after the identification of the 5 pillars of Islam, that person who sat before the Prophet asked him then what was Iman, or what was faith. And he then outlined the 6 principles of faith. He said that faith, first and foremost, is to believe in Allah, to believe in God, to believe in God's angels, to believe in the books of revelation which God has sent, to believe in the prophets of God, to believe in the day of resurrection and the judgment, and to believe in destiny, the good of it and the apparent evil of it. The belief in God that we mentioned in the first place, belief in one God, focuses on the uniqueness of God, as I mentioned, that though people may believe in one God, there is a general tendency to blend that God with the other creatures which God created. In the Islamic view, God is unique in all of his attributes. Human beings, the rest of the creation, do not share the attributes of God in any way, shape, or form. Beyond what we could call a reflection, in the sense that God is all merciful. Human beings may show mercy. God is kind. Human beings may show kindness. God is ever living, without beginning or end. Human beings live. So there are some reflections of the attributes of God in his creation, but the attributes as they exist with God are not to be found in his creation. This is the basic concept of God in Islam. The second is the belief in the angels. And belief in angels constitutes a belief that God has created a set of beings that carry out certain aspects of his commands in the universe. And this is the way that he chose it to be. Not that necessarily God could not have done it without, as this